Hello. Okay. So I guess I'm here early a little bit. Hi, Catherine. Emily, thank you. Thank you. You can hear me perfect. We still got 3 minutes to go. We'll give people some time for them to dial in. All right. Thanks a lot. I guess this is automatically muting everybody, right? Hello, good. Thank you. I'm not even wearing a tie, but this is my office. Okay. Yep, I got it. I know you can't speak, but you can type, right? So, no open questions. Okay, 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes and I'll share my screen so everybody can, let me try now. Okay. Okay, let me see, where's the chat? Okay, so I've shared my screen so far. Can anybody see my, the PowerPoint? Okay, perfect, thank you. Thanks, Catherine. I see there are people raising hands. What am I supposed to do with that? High five with you? Okay. All right, for those of you who dialed in early, wow, it's 90 people already. I guess we're expecting a couple hundred people online, right? So we still have 1 minute before we get started. If you can see the screen but can't hear me, probably haven't turned on your internet audio yet, or you can dial in audio, that works too, okay? So for those of you who dialed in early, you get to tour around my office a little bit. This is a huge photograph that my grandpa took in the 60s, 1960s. It's actually on the Chinese-Russian border, and it's a spring morning, I would say. So if you look closely, you can actually see the ice on the riverbank. So so he signed the calligraphy as well. My grandpa is almost 90 years old. He's been a photographer and an artist all his life. My father's dad. And this is my, I guess, desk over here. And this is me. And I have a huge, huge monitor, which is actually a TV monitor right here. And that's the window. You can't see actually because it's a little dark. It's 8 o'clock in Houston, Texas. But and on this side, there's also some Chinese calligraphy over here, and that door leads to Bing Lu's office. So, okay, so much for the tour. All right, let's get started. Wow, 150 people online. Okay, let's get started. We have a whole lot to cover today. I'll try to talk as fast and as clear as possible, and if we happen to finish on time, and we'll leave a couple minutes for Q&A, okay? These stuff should be pretty familiar, you know, to most people, but there's some update on it. And if you are hearing these for the first time, I highly recommend you take some notes. There might be something that you're hearing for the first time that you don't understand, you know, right off the bat, but that's okay. So write down your questions. Feel free to reach out to myself. Feel free to reach out to your MDs, and let's have fun, okay? So we're talking about college funding and college education fund planning. It's interesting that out of so many SMDs, out of so many, you know, qualified people, Me being someone who don't have kids yet, we're working on it. And we're talking about college kids education planning, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because if you have kids, even if they're born yesterday, I guarantee you, I will be spending more money on college education for my children in the future than yours, because it's growing so fast every single year, okay? Why prepare early? Well, the simple reason is it's quite costly, right? We're looking at academic year of 2019 and 2020. The average expense for a private school is a minimum of $70,000 plus per year, and that includes tuition, room and board, books, and stuff like that. Sometimes it doesn't even include room and board. It's already $70,000 a year, and growing every year, right? Public school, if you're going in-state, you get somewhat of a discount of $24,000 plus. If you're going out of state, $44,000 plus. There's some examples over here. On the left side is private, right side is public, and the ones that I've actually turned red are the university here in Texas, where I live. Rice University, 67, Southern Methodist University, 76, right? UPenn, this is an Ivy League, 75, Stanford, 74, and goes on and on. NYU, I think that should be updated, because last time I checked, it's over $80,000 a year already. I don't know if there's anybody living in New York or preparing to send their kids to New York or NYU. It's a great university. It's a private school. I have lots of friends and clients sending their kids over there, and it costs you a ton. Whether it's an arms and leg, depends on how much money you have or how much money you have to pay out of pocket, right? So for public school, if you're going in-state, it's actually quite affordable comparatively, quite affordable. But in some cases, look at this, Texas A&M, Agricultural and Mechanic University. It's a great public university in the state of Texas. It's also a military school. If you're a Texas resident and you can pay $29,000 per year to go to this awesome university. However, if you're not from Texas, I'm sorry, $70,000, more than twice as much, right? UC Berkeley, great school, right? Public. For California resident, 36, anywhere else, 46. The difference is not that drastic, but still, it's quite a jump over there. Now, the key question comes down to twofolds. How many kids do you have? Are you ready for it? Right? It's a pretty realistic question, and it's also something that people want to go the ostrich for it, right? Just stick your head in the sand and be like, you know what? Never mind. If it costs that much, they can just go to a community college, right? Or they can go to the military, or, well, those are backup plans, or maybe your first choices. However, what if your kids can get into one of those schools and you're stuck at the point that you can't afford it, right? Today, we're going to talk about how you can afford it, and I'll tell you some good news. Okay, not only are they expensive, but also they rise pretty fast. All the way from the mid-'80s all the way till most recently, right? And you can see this light blue line represents public school. It's growing right around 8% per year. If you know Rule 72, that doubles every 9 years. And private school already being pretty expensive, around 7%. And that's with inflation factored in, right? Doubles every 10 years. If you take out inflation, it drops down to 2 or 3 or 4, something like that. But do keep in mind that the cost of attendance for universities or colleges actually rise up much, much faster than general inflation, okay? And this is from 87 to 18. The most recent couple of years, it took a few jumps, right? So I did a simple calculation in my head. Now, if we have kids, my wife and I, if we start having kids next year, okay, or in the next 2 years, let's say, and give another 18 years for my kids to go to, my first child to go to college, 2 plus 18, that's 20, right? So the slowest growing in this private university, it takes 10 years to double. And 20 years, it's going to become 4 times, quadruple the amount of we're paying right now, right? We just saw private school cost about $70,000 a year. I'm going to drop it down to 60-ish, okay? So 4 years, it's going to be at least $250,000 investment for one kid. One kid, just 4 years, right? And that's for me, okay? And what about 4 years? 250 times 4, that's $1 million each. Just one of my children finished college. if I have to pay everything out of pocket, that's $1 million baby right there. Okay. And, and I don't want to have kids anymore if I have to pay that much. I know I will be able to afford it because this business, it's so good, right? Our income has been growing year after year, but still, I don't want to pay everything out of pocket. And truth be told, I really don't have to pay, okay? Let me walk you through some common misunderstandings. A lot of times, you know, we figure out that we're probably solution providers, but in reality, we should actually provide people with problems instead of solutions. And I'll explain why. I heard this from Patrick Kelly, the author of Tax-Free Retirement and Retirement Miracles, right? I had the privilege of meeting him in person in Las Vegas earlier this year, and he said, so for all of the advisors present today, do you sell problem or do you sell solutions? Almost unanimously, everybody was saying, we sell solutions. And he said, well, that's probably why you're not at what where you want to be, because instead of selling solutions, you should be selling problems. Simple answer is that if people don't even realize they have a problem, they're not even going to look at your solution. Okay, so let's look at some misunderstandings that are really, really common and really, really easy to figure out. Okay, you probably heard people say that my kids are too young. It's too early to save. Well, guess what? My kids are really young. They're minus, several months, several years age, right? I will have to pay a whole lot. The younger the children, the younger the child, the more the cost. Okay. Our incomes are too high. There's no way we can get financial aid. FA stands short for financial aid. This is very, very common, especially, among high-income families. If you have one engineer, and most likely you have a neighbor who's also an engineer, right? And the next door neighbor who's also an engineer. So you look on the right, you can look on the left, and both of them said, you know what, our incomes are pretty much comparable. Our kids didn't get any financial aid or didn't get much. Why bother spend hours filling out those forms, right? Truth be told, what if one parent lose the job when applying? This actually happened to two of my clients, right? One of them, lost their job. One of them changed from a full-time employee job to a part-time contractor job due to the oil and gas downturn, right? If you're paying a couple of cents or a couple of dimes less in your gas price, guess what? Houston is losing jobs, right? And we're gaining in recruits. So, and also income levels are all relative. I'll show you some examples where people making $500,000, over $1 million income, they still qualify for financial aid. I'm not even talking about scholarship, okay? Grants, loans, financial aids, and all those things. Some people say our incomes are too low, on the other hand, right? We never have to pay. And that's not always true. True story, I have a client in New York, and a family of 5, okay? So husband and wife, 3 kids. Husband is the sole breadwinner, and the wife stay at home taking care of 3 kids. And their income, combined family income, is no more than $100,000. It's pretty tight, actually, considering they live in the state of New York, right? And they were like, we will never have to pay for tuition. Our kids got into NYU, and we should get full financial aid. Most of the case, that could be true. But in their case, it didn't happen because their second child actually got admitted to NYU, and they did actually put in the application, but the result came back they didn't get any money, right? Because the school found out that they have 2 houses, and between the 2 houses, even the combined equity is over $1.5 million. Just the equity. I'm not talking about the house price, right? Just the equity, the amount of money that's actually in the house, it's over $1.5 million. And NYU being a private school, it counts both your investment home and your primary residence, all the equity combined. So the letter politely said, well, we see that you have the money. Your best bet is to sell the house, take the money out, and pay for it by yourself. We're going to give you this number. It's a pretty round number, right? So no guarantee to get good financial aid or at all if your assets are allocated, I guess, disadvantageously. I don't know if that makes sense, okay? And a lot of people say public schools are much cheaper. Forget about private. Well, price-wise, if you look at price tags, public schools are in general much cheaper than private schools. But it doesn't mean you have to pay the same amount. I mean, you have to pay much more to go to private. Right? You might end up, if you plan well, you might end up paying the same amount or even less. And I have examples to back it up, okay? So keep those misunderstandings in mind, and I'm going to walk you through those. So when it comes to type of financial aid, I went to college in China and finished college and came here to start my PhD program. So I had no idea how financial aid, I guess, system works in the undergrad world here in the United States. But to my surprise, I thought it's going to be, most of them is going to be like, merit-based scholarships. You have to have really high GPA. You have to have really high SAT scores, right? And you have to do like 5 sports and play 10 different instruments and be the student body president to be able to get scholarship or something like that. But reality is not so much, okay? So merit-based is pretty much based on students' achievements, academically, extracurricular activities, and all those things. And there's need-based, is pretty much based on the data in these 2 forms. They might ask for one FAFSA form, that's free application for federal student aid, or they might also ask for a second form, that's the CSS profile. So usually public university only asks you to fill out a FAFSA. Private university asks, on top of FAFSA, they also require you to fill out a CSS profile, okay? So now, percentage-wise, which one do you think consists more, more portion of the total financial aid package? I asked a lot of parents, I asked a lot of friends, a lot of clients before they listened to the seminars or before they know this information. Most people would think the merit-based consists of more or most of the financial aid package, or at least 50-50. But if you really fill out one of those forms, you're going to find out that it's almost 90%. Okay, so roughly about 10%, sometimes even less, is from merit-based scholarship, and 90%, or at least the majority, is from need-based financial aid. Because a lot of time it's not because, there are situations where 2 families have similar income, similar amount of assets, but one get financial aid, one didn't. I guess most of the time the difference is what we call information asymmetry, right? One person knows the information, one person didn't. And that makes a huge difference. Like, for example, did you know this? What I'm about to show you right here. If you look at the time right here, it shows October 16th, 2018. So less than a year ago, 2.6 billion with a B in free college money, $2.6 billion in free college money went unclaimed by 2018 grads. And that's just 1 year. That's just 1 year. And that's only counting federal Pell Grant. And if you look at, if you've seen summer packages, you know that federal Pell Grant is only a small portion of the free financial aid you're going to get, okay, that you can apply for. I'm going to let it sink in for a little bit. $2.6 billion. How does that sound? If you can, that's $2,600 million, okay? So if you make $1 million a year, that takes 2,600 years to accumulate to that amount. And that's just 1 year of money that everybody is missing out. Think about this. There's a pile of gold, a pile of cash, a bag of cash, let's say, with your kid's name written on it. And you're like, you know what? Jack said he didn't get it. Mike said he didn't get it. Susan said, well, you probably won't get it because you make more than I do. You know what? It takes 3 hours to fill out that, stupid form. Let me just forget about it. 2.6 billion, your kid's name on it, and that money is gone. Guess who's going to pay for it? You're going to pay for it. Your kid's going to pay for it, plus interest. Guess what? Former President Obama just paid off his student loan not too long ago, within the past, I guess, 5-6 years, something like that, at most of the last decade, right? So, because he went to law school. So, a lot of these information are simply just, I guess, not shared enough. It's not even purposely withheld from us, right? So we should go out and share these things. Let's look at Princeton. This is the most updated one, and this credit goes back to Dianxia. I think I took it from her slides. Okay, a lot of parents ask me, so how low does my income have to go to be able to qualify one of these, right? Well, let's see, how poor do you have to be? If you follow my red dot over here, if your income is no more than 180,000 pre-tax income after deduction, after your personal deduction, okay? Standard deduction. You have a 100% of a chance to get qualified. If you just apply, just fill out the form, and your kids can get, on average, $43,900 per year per child, and that's free money. Some people say, how much does my kid have to pay back? Well, nothing, because this is after average grant, right? Grant is free money. You never have to pay back. And that covers over almost 90% of the tuition. Even if your combined income is actually higher, let's say, how about you make your $250,000 ring earner, okay? And your pre-tax income after deduction is $250,000 and above. And that includes $300,000, $500,000, $1 million, Rocky, Miranda combined, right? You still have 1/3 of the chance to qualify for $22,000 free money. That's almost half of the tuition. Right. See, a couple of weeks ago, I was inviting one of my friends to come to one of our BPMs, to come to one of our seminars, and we're going to talk about these things. And he said, I would love to go, and I can get up early on Saturday morning, but you know what? There's my wife and I were into rock climbing, right? And we have to go to a garage sale at REI. And I was like, I paused for 3 seconds. I'm like, let me tell you this. If you just come tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, and you take one piece of advice back home, guess what? Your entire life, you never have to go to garage sale. Never have to, right? He said, well, is that, it's still a pretty good deal. That pair of rock climbing shoes at $200 is selling for $150. I said, well, if you want to save that $50, you're going to miss out on $50,000 per year for the rest of your life. I guarantee you. It's probably even worse than that. So eventually they actually came, and they're like, we never have to worry about garage sale anymore, right? So it's one of my side hobbies, rock climbing, that I picked up about 2 years ago. I had one of my friends in Bay Area who's into pottery made this mug for me. If I hold it a little far, it says, I love my wife, right? If you can see, I love my wife. But if you look closer, it says, I love it when my wife lets me go rock climbing. It's a fun thing, and you have this really hard to grip handle. Okay. Can you use that to invite someone who want to go to garage sale, right? Or who want to go to, I don't know, Black Friday sale, just because something, your TV set is on sale for like $200 off or something like that. For the rest of your life, you never have to look at price tags. Anyway, okay. Let me look at Princeton. I got it actually from their website, right? Tuition, college fee, room and board for this very year's entry, it's costing $66,000, almost $67,000, minus the average grant a student admitted to the class of 2022. Average, that is average. That's just 50 percentile, okay? And the average net cost of tuition, college fee, room and board for aid recipients is only less than $14,000. I mean, think about it. Princeton, $13,600. You're pretty much spending something even less than a public university tuition, and you can go to Princeton. So all your kids has to do is just get good grades, right? Stay out of trouble, go to school, write a good essay, and spend a couple hours, fill out a form, and you can go to Princeton. Make sense? Money is not an issue at this point. Okay. Let me go a little faster. Actual financial aid given. This is a couple years ago for University of Pennsylvania. This blue bar represents the median total grants you're going to get, and the red bar represents the family contribution. The light blue is work study, okay, on-campus jobs and stuff like that. So if your income is no more than $190,000, look at this, you're going to pay no more than 50%. No more than 50%. Guess what? Middle class starts right around $53,000 family income and ends about $254,000 family income. So this is upper middle class, and you only have to spend no more than half, no more than 50% of the tuition. How's that, right? And when it compares private university versus public, UPenn actually has this exact bar chart on their website, which I screen capped. On the left side is the University of Pennsylvania cost of attendance, almost $67,000. On the right side, it's one of those Pennsylvania public university, $30,000. So if you look at the price tag, it's 50% or more less when it goes to public. However, for private university, it's going to give you on average, $53,000 grant, plus $3,300 in work study and $0 loan. And if you look at a public university, the grant drops drastically from $53,000 to $11,000, same amount of work study, and you still have to borrow a couple $1,000 student loan. So at the end of the day, the expected family contribution, which means the money that you have to pay out of pocket, is exactly the same, $10,000. Now, I really don't care how much they charge. I really just care how much I have to pay. I really don't care how much you charge. I really care how much I have to pay. That makes sense, right? So you can jack up the price tag really, really high and give me a huge package in terms of financial aid, and it still drops my out-of-pocket money to a smaller amount. So money should not be the deciding factor, at least in most cases, when it comes to private versus public university, okay? So because private university has much more funding, has much more resources, foundations, right? Alumni donations and stuff like that. Okay, I see somebody asked a question. Let me see what that is. Okay, I'm gonna probably save all the questions to the end. Okay. All right, and this is for you, Rice University. Let me update it for you. So September 18th last year, right? Not too long ago, less than a year ago, Rice University had a big news that they're offering free tuition for students from families making less than $130,000 a year. If you look at this, for family income between $65,000 and $130,000, they're eligible to receive full tuition scholarship. Family income between $130,000 and $200,000, you're going to receive at least half of the tuition or more. And for family making less than $65,000, they not only get a full tuition scholarship, but it will also receive all fees, room, and board covered. So Rice University, they call it the Little Harvard in the South, right here in Houston, Texas. And they're like different castles, different colleges, and the room and board are not cheap at all. Right, and it's in the center of Houston downtown, Houston Medical Center. Okay, so that's actually, I believe it's actually better, much better than what most people think it would be. Okay, and here's another example: public versus private. This is actually from one of my friends' children who already graduated college a couple of years ago. This is from Boston, Massachusetts, right? UMass Amherst, this is a public university charging $38,000, giving $14,000. This is Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, or RPI for short, in upstate New York, charging $59,000, but also giving $34,000. So the effective family, estimate, just skipping my mind. Expected family contribution, EFC, is pretty much the same. You're paying less than $700 more to go to a really, really good private university versus a public one, okay? So it's your choice. Now, it comes down to how, these are all need-based, by the way. It comes all the way down to how needs are calculated. The formula, it's really, really simple. It's need equals to COA minus EFC. I'll explain. COA means cost of attendance, right? That's tuition, room and board, fees and charges and everything combined. EFC is expected family contribution, AKA your out-of-pocket money, okay? The goal is to lower your EFC at all costs. It's that simple. It is that simple, okay? Thank you for your question. I'll come back to that later on. Okay, now it comes down to how EFC is calculated. The details are all in the FAFSA and CSS profile instructions. If you filed tax before, you're probably gonna find on IRS website a 1040 form instruction, right? This is the same way. I'll give you the website at the end of this presentation. For FAFSA instructions and CSS profile instructions, it's all in there. But to simplify it, is actually 4 parts that consist of what's called the EFC. It's parent income, parent asset, student income, and student asset. I tell every parent that I come across with, there are 2 things you don't want to do if you want to send your kids to college and don't want to pay every single dollar out of your own pocket. Here are the 2 things. Number 1, try not to let your kids work through college. Preferably start 2 years before they go to college, I guess junior year in high school. And here's why. Other than the little bit of allowance 50% of what they make during college years and probably 2 years prior are going to be deducted from the financial aid they could have gotten. I'll explain. Say, for example, if they take on a part-time job and make $10,000 a year, okay? So $5,000 will be deducted from your financial aid package, and that's $5,000 a year. In 4 years, it's going to be $20,000. Say goodbye to that and out of your own pocket. And by the way, that's $20,000 after-tax money that your kids are not going to give you, and you will have to pay. Make sense? So try not to let your kids work through college. Well, I'll be really brutally honest with you. They can volunteer, right? They can get experience. They can still get skin in the game. They can even make cash income or something, they can legally, that's outside of their taxable income. Okay? That's as far as I can tell you. Now, keep C at a minimum, zero if possible, all right? And for the D part, that's student asset. The second thing you don't want to do is to save a huge amount of asset under the kid's name. Nothing if possible, right? If possible, just don't save anything. Don't even open accounts under the name. But if they just have a checking account, saving account, and have $500 in there, and that's okay. That's allowed. That's not going to affect you much. But I've seen some really smart parents. I don't know if one of you is on the call today. If I'm describing one of you, and you can still change that. But I have a friend who bought a new condo, right, next to Rice University because it's really expensive to rent over there. He was like, we have some extra cash on the side. We might actually just buy a house over there, a condo, right? And a condo of, I guess, 1,200 square foot or 1,500 square foot in Houston costs somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000. Don't get envy. We're our houses are cheap here, right? Our property taxes are high. So, and they put the kids as a co-signer, right? So the son, I forget if it's a son or daughter, the son, the children is actually 16 years old, and they can start accumulating their credit history, right, as a co-signer. I mean, credit-wise, you start early of, building a credit history. That's pretty smart to do. However, it's just a little smart, a big not so smart, right? So, so that, let's say $150,000 house in there, that's going to cost you minimum 20% counted towards your, expected family contribution. So 150,000, 20%, that's 30,000. So each year, his child is going to get $30,000 less in financial aid. Guess what? Are your expenses, well, that $150,000 house is not going to make you $30,000 a year. Definitely not. Definitely not. You have expenses, you have property tax, you have all those things you have to pay, right? So C and D are things you really, really want to eliminate if possible, okay? But when it comes to A and B, the A part is a little tricky, okay, parent income, because if your income is, all of your income is from W-2 sources, meaning it's an employment income, there's not much places you can save on taxes or lower your taxable income, right? I hear some parents would choose to, by choice, change their full-time job to a part-time job just so they can make a little less, get a little more financial aid. Mathematically, that works. But it's almost like, I don't know, if I want to kill the enemy, I have to chop off my arm or something like that, right? The cost is pretty big. So, and you also possibly, you might lose your benefit, okay? But if you have any type of 1099 income, right? If you have a business income or investment income, that could lead to a extra form, a tax form called Schedule C, or you can deduct a whole lot of different things from your taxable income. You end up paying a lot less tax and a lot less counted towards your EFC, okay? So when it comes to parent income, so the number that has impact on financial aid is what's called a modified and adjusted gross income, right? For adjusted gross income, or AGI in short, you're probably more familiar with. What's modified adjusted gross income is actually AGI plus your pre-tax retirement contribution for that year when you're filling that form. Say, for example, if my AGI, after deduction is $120,000, right? Our family combined income is $120,000, okay? And I put in $19,000 in my 401k, max it out, okay? So at the end of the day, 120 minus 19, that's 101. So my taxable income, or AGI, is 101,000, okay? But when it comes to financial aid, you have to add back that 19,000 you deducted for that year. So we go back to 120, That's your modified adjusted gross income. Make sense? Okay, so what can reduce income? Simply business expenses. So if you could start a business or start a business purpose, IRS for the first 2-3 years, you can actually file total loss, right? You know, your income could be lower than your profit, well, than your expenses. Yeah. So basically you can file a net loss. But I believe it's over 3 years, you can't do that anymore, right? It becomes a non-qualified hobby, okay? So now it comes to B. B is where they count the parent asset. And there are two different kinds of parent asset. They're drastically different, and I'll go over each one of them with you, okay? Let's look at the left side first. Included asset starts with 529. If you don't know what's a 529, it's a specific usage type of accounts which allows you to invest with after-tax dollars, and the gain inside of a 529 account before you take it out is tax deferred, so you don't have to pay tax every year if you don't take it out. And if you use it for qualified education expenses, you still don't have to pay tax, both on the gain and the principal, okay? But you have to use it for qualified educational expenses. A couple of years ago, you can only use it for college education, and I believe for many, many states after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or the, as Donald Trump puts it, the Cut Act, you can actually use it for K-12 education as well, okay, for some states. I think I have a map at the end. But for 529, usually I would personally recommend my clients to start thinking about it if your family income reaches or exceeds $250,000 or $300,000. Because before that, you still have a very high chance of getting financial aid as long as you structure your assets right? But if you have a 529, a lot of times it will either deduct roughly about 20% from your financial aid. Say, for example, if I have $100,000 saved up from 529, then each year my kid's going to get $20,000 less, right? 4 years, I'm losing $80,000. And in 4 years, 100,000 is not going to grow up to 80,000. It's pretty aggressive, okay? And if you don't use it for educational purposes, you're going to have to pay the tax on the gain plus 10% penalty on the amount of withdrawal. But if you don't use it, if you can't use it up, you can actually transfer it to another beneficiary. It could be, you know, another one of your children, or even, niece and nephews. I believe you can do that too. If my first child doesn't use it up, it can pass down to the second. If the second doesn't use it up, I'll try to have a third one, right? But you're probably in your 50s by then. Anyways, UGMA, UTMA are rarely used now. At least most people that I talk to don't even know what it is. And it can only fund up to $2,000 a year. It's not going to, I guess, suffice. Stock mutual funds, your brokerage account definitely are included. Savings, CDs, your bank account definitely included. Checking as well. Rental property. This is something that I highly recommend you to pay special attention to, especially when you're considering sending your kids to college. If possible at all, probably the best way to do it is just to get rid of it 2 years before they go to college. Now, if you have kids already in college or are going to college in the next 2 years, try to refinance it if possible without having having the rate too high, and cash out some of the money, because they only just count the equity, not the entire house price. Say, for example, if I have 3 rental properties and they're $200,000 each, okay, so $600,000 in combined market price, but I have roughly about $100,000 loan on each of them, which means the equity in each of the houses is $100,000. You follow? Right? So they only count the equity. So when it comes to financial aid, they only count that 100,000 times 3, so $300,000 equity instead of $600,000 total market price. Okay, so which means if you really love this house, if this is a retirement home, you don't want to sell it, right? You can refinance and do what's called a cash out refinance and restructure the loan so that you have a smaller down payment and cash out the most of the money, right? And when it comes to where you put that money, I'll show you exactly where. Pretty much to the right side, to the excluded accounts, okay? Trust fund will be counted. Resident home, I have an asterisk on it. Public school may exclude it. If you're going to public school in state, most of the time they don't count, they don't care how much money you have in your resident home, the home you live in, right, your primary residence. But if you're going to a private school, and a lot of times if you're going to out-of-state public universities, they also count the equity within your resident home, okay? Keep that in mind. So you can also do that with a refinancing deal. You can actually do that. Now, if you paid off your house, that's a different story. That's a different story. Now, there's a myth I want to debunk over here just real quick. I have some parents telling me that, you know what, I have my home and I bought a rental property and I put a smaller amount of money in there, okay? So, and I refinance, I take the cash out, I buy another rental home and I do the same thing for the third one, or the fourth one, or the fifth one. So I accumulate a whole lot of mortgage, right? I'm in a whole lot of debt, which means the school should give me a lot more money because I'm in debt. Well, you are in a whole lot of debt. But also with each additional house that you're buying, you're actually putting additional additional equity in there. You're actually increasing your total equity. They don't care how much debt you have. They really care how much equity you have, because rental home is a choice, right? You can choose between college and rental home, but you can't have both, I guess, in this case, okay? At least not a whole lot of equity in there. All right, move on to the right side. Excluded. There are really not a whole lot of things that are excluded, mainly 3 categories. And how do I know that? I look at every single line of the FAFSA and CSS profile instruction, and I also visited every single university here in the state of Texas and some other states as well, right? So, because a lot of times on their website, they don't put data on it. They don't put enough information on it. You have to walk into their financial aid office to actually talk to them. So I talked to this person at Rice, and we actually talked to quite some time. So I asked them why all of those things on the left side are included, and only the 3 categories, your retirement, qualified retirement, your annuity, and your IUL, VUL, or 7702 account, those don't count. And to my surprise, because when it comes to approving or reviewing financial aid application, they have this priority list, okay? So for parents to retire, say your 401k account, your IRA account, your SEP IRA account, your pension, your Social Security, all of those money, plus for them to stay retired, if you have money in your pension, if you have money in any kind of annuity, right, that's to provide you mostly for a lifetime income stream, right? Or if you have money in your cash value life insurance, especially in your IUL and VUL, okay? Those are things that are in a higher priority list than kids going to college. Now, I know a lot of people online are Asian parents, and Asian parents can fast, can sell everything, can rent a house, and then their kids still have to go to college, right? That doesn't work for all the universities here in the United States. For most universities, they will not force you to take money out of these 3 types of accounts and pay for the college, which means you can legally put your money in there, or you can call it hide your money in there legally, right, up to the certain limits, and they never have to care, right? So those are excluded, and their usages are different, obviously. I'm spending a little more time on this one because this is very important, and this is where most people can switch 180 degree from not qualified to qualifying a lot, from qualifying, smaller amount to qualifying much more, okay? All right. Okay, I need to speed up. I got 20 minutes. So I'm not going to go through every single line. This is 2019 to 2020 FAFSA instruction, and I put it into a much colorful, diagram for you to look at. Okay, so if you want, I'm actually going to send this PowerPoint to all the SMDs, so you can ask them for that. Okay, how to maximize your financial aid. Number 1, avoid saving money under kid's name unless it's excludable. Number 2, reduce includable assets. Number 3, reallocate money to excludable asset, pretty much what I just said, right? And start a business so that you can reduce your modified adjusted gross income, right? Okay, so the different types of education funds that are commonly used. Some people use money in their bank, money in their brokerage account. Some people use UGMA, UTMA accounts. Some people use Coverdell accounts or educational savings accounts, right? Some people use 529 or IGIP or 7702, and there are also some state-specific I guess, tuition aid programs. Like in state of Texas, we have this Texas Tuition Tomorrow Fund or Texas Tuition Promise Fund that you can actually use as long as you go to a public university within the states. I'm not going to go through every single line, but when you're evaluating where you can save money and for education, I want you to look at these five different aspects. Are they financial aid friendly? Meaning, if you save money in there, is it going to cost you the financial aid you could have gotten, right? Is there any tax benefit when it comes to the growth of the money? Is there any contribution limit, right? Say, for example, for Coverdell, it's only $2,000 a year. It's not going to be enough. Even if I start saving as soon as my kids are born, it's not going to be enough, right? And also the usage. Is there any limit on the usage? What if my kids don't use it up or don't use it at all? What if they go to the military or become a rock star and never go to college? Can I take the money for something else, right? And also about legal protection if I'm, raise the bar a little higher, right? Which means if you ever get sued, if you ever get a lawsuit or creditor coming after you, is the money going to be sued away? Okay. All right. Here's an example of a Princeton Aid Award. Given a case study. So for this family, their gross income is $200,000, and they have a combined includable asset of $500,000. They're contributing $19,000 each, which is $38,000 in 401k contribution each year. For this year, they're maxing it out, okay? And their estimated tax paid is $20,000 because they've, obviously, 200 minus your 38, and you pay $20,000 in tax, okay? Now, in this case, if you go on Princeton's website, they'd actually have a calculator you can use. A lot of university would have those calculators, right? You plug in the numbers, they'll give you the cost of attendance, and you put in these numbers, it'll actually tell you the expected family contribution, okay? And the aid package you're gonna get based on this situation is $4,050. No student loan, all grants, $4,050. How much are they charging? $74,000, okay? $74,050, and you're paying $70,000, okay? Now, for the same family, same income, but just includable assets structured a little bit differently. Instead of $500,000 all exposed, pretty much on the table exposed, how about let's legally hide them a little bit, right? You can put it in your retirement account, you can put it in your annuities, you can put it in your life insurance, whatever that fits. If you have more kids, that's even better. You have more people who can own those accounts, right? And you can use it accordingly. In this case, if a Roth 401k option is available with their employer, might as well contribute to Roth 401k contribution instead of 401k, right? I'm guessing for a college kid's parents, they're probably somewhere around early 50 to early 60s or something like that, right? Which means they still have a long way to go before they die, which means as we currently see, the tax rate overall is growing pretty fast in the future. And we don't know who's going to be elected next year, but whoever's going to be elected, in the long run, the tax rate is going to rise, right? So we might as well pay it now and never later. So the estimated tax paid is $40,000. In this case, you're actually paying $20,000 more in tax because instead of saving in traditional 401k, you're saving in Roth. But in this case, let's look at that. Still, the cost of attendance is still $74,050, but your expected family contribution drops all the way from $70,000 to $32,400 because you're getting what? $41,650 in grant, and it's all free money, zero student loan, and that's for Princeton. You can play around with the calculator, and you can plug in different numbers, but it is what it is. Right? All because you move some of your included asset to your excluded asset. Like I'm moving my flash drive from left pocket to right pocket, and my left pocket looks pretty empty. Okay? Huge, huge difference. Another example, Emily, she's graduated last year already, bright kid. Her parents were making over $500,000 in her freshman year, and were making over $1 million by the time she graduated. $1,500,000 probably. But all 4 years just getting financial aid, right? and this is for NYU. So, and here's why, because she's going to film directing major. And a lot of times, if you're going to arts major or film directing major of that sort, your classmates are actually coming from pretty well-off families as well, right? Pretty well off. I think Mary told me that Emily has a classmate whose parents is very well known. His name is Mike Tyson. So Mike Tyson's daughter actually goes to the same class, right? So when you're, surprising that a family that's making over $1 million still get financial aid, well, guess what? You're making $1 million or $2 million or $3 million compared to Mike Tyson, you're still pretty poor. You still would qualify. On the contrary, if you're studying some major that the majority of the students are coming from underprivileged families or middle-class families, and your income is a little bit higher, you might not get the kind of financial aid that you want. You might want to restructure your asset in a little bit. Make sense? It's all relative. It's all relative, thanks to Einstein, okay? So there's a lot of examples. I'm not going to walk you through, every single one. Feel free to look out for the PowerPoints from SMD. But this is another friend of mine's, I think daughter, I believe, graduated from University of Pennsylvania. It's an Ivy League school. It's an awesome school. Look at this. Year one, they're charging $59,000, and she got $42,000, including $5,000 loan. The majority is grant and scholarship. Okay. Second year, price went up to 62. She got 40. Third year, price went up to 64. She got 44. Last year, she got price went up to 67,000. She got 38,000. So on average, they were paying somewhere around 20,000 a year and went to an Ivy League school. Make sense? No, it doesn't make sense at all, but that's exactly how it works. Remember what I said? I don't care how much you charge, I only care how much I pay, okay? Now, how do we apply for financial aid? So FAFSA, CSS profile, those are the two forms that are most commonly filled out, okay? And here is the deadline. What's today's date? September 9th, right? September 9th. So we're right around 3 weeks away from the first starting day of FAFSA filing, okay? So October 1st, if your kids are going to college next year, next fall, then October 1st is the first day you can start filing those financial aid applications. You want to do it as fast as possible, as early as possible, because there are what's called priority deadlines or priority considerations or early considerations, all those things. Say, for example, especially for public schools, because their budgets are tight, and if this is the amount of money that we'll give out for that year, and you applied late, guess what? It's like boarding for Southwest, right? If you're a group A3 or A10, then you can pick whatever seat you want. You can pick a emergency row seat with lots of leg rooms. But if you're group C53, guess what? You probably don't even have overhead space to put your luggage, okay? I don't know if you can relate to that. I fly Southwest a lot, so I want to check in as soon as possible, okay? As soon as it becomes available. So keep those dates in mind. FAFSA and CSS profile income reporting. Now, a lot of times when you are, I realize I say a lot of times, when you're applying, say for example, for year 2020, okay, do they look at your 2019 tax form? No, not really, not yet, because guess what? October 1st is the application date. It's not even the end of the year, right? You don't even know how much money you're going to make by the end of the year. So they actually look 2 years back. Most schools do that, right? What year taxes return do we use for income? It's considered what's called a base year or base tax year. For 2020 or 2021 school year, they're using 2018, right? So current seniors. For 2021, 2022, they're using 2019, so forth, so on and so forth. Okay. And, oh, yeah, that's a map about 529. Some states, the states that are actually in orange may not follow the new tax law, which means you can still only use 529 for college expenses. You can't use it for K-12 schools. But if you live in California, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Illinois is not, where do we have most people? Pennsylvania, New York, where's New York? I think New York can, oh no, New York is not. All of those states, Florida, you can still use it for K-12 expenses, okay? All right, last part. Emergency methods. What if my kids are going to college next year? What if they're already freshmen or sophomore year? are they too late? Answer is, well, they're not in the best timing, but they're not too late. They're not too late either, right? The best timing is 10 years ago. The second best timing is now, right? And there's some emergency methods you can actually do that. We all know that for qualified, retirement plans like 401k and IRAs, you have a contribution limit up to 6,000 or 19,000 or 24,000 if you're 50 and up, right? For annuities, you can put in so much money in there. Obviously, you can do that, but that's actually only going to be used for retirement, right? So the distribution is a little bit limited. For life insurance, you can put a lot more money in life insurance accounts, but there's also a certain amount of money called 7-pay premium you can put in each year, right, without violating the tax guidelines. I'm using long-term care benefits, a long-term care linked benefit product for an example. Pacific Life has it called Premier Care. Nationwide has it. They just updated. It's called Care Matters 2, right? You're probably familiar with that. What it does, it's pretty much a long-term care solution, but you can actually put a lot more cash in there all at once, and you have the option of taking your money back should you not need long-term care, okay? Say, for example, for I think in general, they can fit up to 600,000, from 60 to 600,000 in one payment, okay? And you can cancel anytime. For Premier Care is actually fully refund starting from day one, okay? And it's excluded from parent asset because it's actually within a life insurance account, okay? It's used for long-term care, it's designed for long-term care, but it's still a life insurance. It's a universal life, right? If you need long-term care, it's going to cover 2 to 8 years, right? You can also add, I might just walk you through that. Also add inflation adjustment benefits on it so that when long-term care cost grows higher in the future, you can actually afford it still. If you pass away, the proceeds will turn into some death benefit, not a whole lot, not as much leverage as a IUL account, but still some death benefit will be left over. And you will never get back less than what you put in, okay? And if you want your money back, you can surrender policy at any time and have a return on premium benefit. You can do that. Similar thing with Nationwide's Care Matters 2. I believe they have an option called fully vested, and also a one-time step-up or a maximized benefit. So there are different levels of return on premium, so you can look into that. Time-wise, I'm not going to delve into that. References. Everything that I've talked about today are either from real client cases or from, I guess, original or government resources. Anything related to public school applications or financial aid goes to fafsa.gov. Anything related to private school, go to collegeboard.org, okay? And the CSS profile you can download from there. And this website, I love it a lot. It's called finaid.org, financialaid.org. We don't have time to walk you through, but feel free to play with that. It is a government website. It is a website that is actually pretty accurate, but it's a nonprofit because the website is so poorly designed, almost like they never hired anybody to beautify the website, but it's pretty powerful. Look for calculator, and under calculator you can find estimated or expected family contribution calculator, okay? So you click into that. It'll ask you to fill out how old is the kid, how old are you, how old is the older parents when the kids go to college, and how many children are in college right now, right? Your family income, your family asset, and what types of assets, it's all in there. It's all in there. And you can put in the target school's tuitions, room and board, or if you leave that blank, it'll show you exactly how much the maximum amount of financial aid you're supposed to get, okay? So you have a better idea. Anything related to tax, I go to irs.gov. And if you find it a little bit difficult to fill out FAFSA forms, there are actually several businesses designed for this niche to help you fill out FAFSA forms and even give your kids scholarships. I think this Frank, it's a startup company in the Silicon Valley. They've been pretty successful for the past couple of years. They will give your kids, I think, $5,000 or $6,000 in free loans or free scholarship. I don't think it's a scholarship. I think it's a student loan. But you don't have to pay them back until you actually get your financial aid. If you don't get financial aid, you never have to pay them back, right? And there's zero interest. is pretty good. And comes with a package. Will give the kid a free Spotify account, subscription, a free Netflix account. I don't know if you like that, something like that. So they have stuff like that out there. Thank you. I finished 4 minutes before deadline. Yes. Now we can get to the questions. Okay, I'm gonna start from the top. Okay, is the income after tax in the UPenn slides? No, it's before tax money. It's all before tax money, okay? Because families differ from one another. You don't know who's, other families' deduction and stuff like that. It's all pre-tax, income, okay? This is MAGI. The quality of audio, oh, I'm sorry about that. I hope it was mostly clear. IGIP, what it is, it stands for Investment Grade Insurance Policy. The full name is Investment Grade Insurance Policy, a term coined by Patrick Kelly from the author of the book Tax-Free Retirement. You can look into that. It's pretty much IUL plus VUL combined, right? Because whole life UL is pretty much savings grade, and then term life is just a temporary solution, okay? Quality of audio control has issues. My voice is sometimes in and out. I do apologize for that. I guess it's probably internet speed issue. I hope it's not everybody feel that way. How do you compute for parent contribution in the previous slides? Winnie and Ranji, I don't know if it's Winnie or Ranji, but we can connect on WeChat. We can probably discuss offline because I don't know which previous slides you were talking about. Okay. Or this weekend I'll go to Chicago. We can talk face to face. Catherine said, "Will 600,000 paid off home affect private school financial aid?" Oh yeah, of course. If you have a 600,000 pay off home, then private school financial aid it's a little hard to get actually, because all 600,000 will be counted towards your asset, right? And 20% of that is 120,000. So there's no school charging more than 120,000 so far, right? So there's other ways you can do that. You can either, I don't know, redo a mortgage, sell it, buy back, or something like that. But that's significant assets over there if it's paid off. Now, if it's private school, it does count, right? If it's for primary residence and for public school, you don't have to worry about it. Can you show the slide before last slide? Sure. Yeah. Let me turn it back. This is the slide before last slide. I'm going to leave it here. Great session, Lynn, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Replay the slide FAFSA and CSS income. You know what? For all those slides information, feel free to go back to your SMD or MD. I'll send it to Jenny, Miss Jenny Gabor, and she's going to distribute to the SMDs, and they will all have the access to the slides you can review. Okay. How to calculate parent asset and income for divorced parents who gets married again? Very, very good question. I actually do have a slide, but unfortunately that's in Mandarin Chinese. What I can tell you, a short answer is so both parents don't have to fill out it together, okay? So if husband and wife or mom and dad divorced and the kids are going to college, okay? So whose asset and income is going to be counted? It depends on who the kids spend more time with for that year, for that base year you're counting. If you spend equal amount of time, one of them has to spend more than 183 days. So that person is going to be counted towards, that person's income and asset is going to be used when it comes to financial aid application. Now, if the kid actually spends more time with, let's say, mom, but dad pays for most of the things, they actually will count the dad. Okay, so they have a 7 level of distinguished questions. So after 7, bifurcating questions, you will definitely find out, which parent they're going to count. Okay, so if you still have that question, you can look it up for remarried parents. Someone said applying for financial aid affect college admission and experience from previous clients. That's a myth, actually. That's a very good myth. For schools that can give out financial aid, they would not discriminate whether, say for example, if 2 kids have the same GPA, have the same SAT scores, which are very rare, right? And have all around, everything's the same, twins. and one of them wants a financial aid package, the other one say, we're going to pay everything out of pocket. The school is not going to favor this one who pays out of pocket. Most schools don't do that, especially private schools, because they have money. Remember, 2.6 billion just federal programs sitting there. They still have lots of money that's sitting there not unclaimed. So most of the time, it's not going to affect your college admission, okay? If it does affect, it's probably a very poor school. You probably choose otherwise, I suggest. Audio was fine, thank you. 8 months in, and I finally understand education piece. No problem. Okay. All right, let me see any other questions. If the house is under LLC or corporation, would it still affect kids' financial aid? Cindy, very good question, thank you. It depends how the business is owned, because when it comes to FAFSA and also for CSS profile, they not only count your personal asset, also count your business asset, right? So you can certainly, you know, what if someone just transfer everything under the business and I'm broke, right? I don't have any money. Does that work? Well, that business is still owned by the person, okay? They still ask for your business assets. They still ask for your business ownership, all those things. So the best way to find out, because every case is different, there's no two leaves are identical. The best way to find out, I would suggest you go to FAFSA and CSS profile, and also go to that finaid.org website and use that calculator. If you have a target school, most universities, especially for private schools, they would have their specific calculator engineered for their own school's program, okay? So that one is actually the most accurate one for that school. It takes a little more time, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it, okay? Is the child IUL account counted as child asset? No. IUL, nothing in IUL is counted. Is the webinar recorded? Yes. Yes, it is. What if parent has inherited asset but still in trust? Will it count towards parent asset? That's a very good question. It depends on what type of trust it is, and depends on whether the parent has access, you know, to the trust, right? So if they're only the beneficiary and it's not distributing yet, and it's an irrevocable trust, it's still in the held by the trust, the parent can't even touch the money, then you don't have to count. But this cases might become a little bit of tricky. I would highly suggest you go to a specific school and ask their financial aid officer. Don't just look at their website. Their websites are poorly designed. Most of the websites are, right? Princeton and UPenn are probably one of the best. Ask their financial aid advisor and see what they say about your particular situation. Okay, hope I'm not missing any questions. Now, if you, I know there's another webinar that's starting right now by Judy talking about rules and standards. If you want to get on that one, feel free to get offline. I'll stay online to answer the rest of the questions, okay? And for everybody else, have a good night. So what's the next question? Let's see. We still have 400 people online. Oh my God. What if the parents, okay. When is the best time to prepare college fund? That's a very good question. When is the first time you start saving for retirement plan, for retirement money? When you get your first job. When you get to participate in 401k, that's when you start saving for retirement, right? When is the best time to prepare for college fund? When you start having kids, or probably think about having it, and you should start, because the later you start, the more money you have to pay at the end, right? Because you want to have more time to compound. The money you saved, not only do you want to actually take into consideration that some will be included, some will be excluded, but also you want to give it time to actually compound, right? So you save a seed, you actually have a harvest. Good question. Do you suggest a family to sell most or all of their stocks 2 or 3 years before kids apply for college? Well, I think it's really up to the family. From a calculation standpoint, the stock, the amounts, you know, money that's in the stock will definitely be counted towards included asset. So in that regard, it's actually a disadvantage to own too much of it. Plus, you know, when your kids go to college, you're probably in your 50s and 60s, and most people don't want to or don't have the energy to track the stock market. And even if you can, there's no guarantee you can make money or not lose money, right? So you can probably restructure your allocation at least 2-3 years before that, or at least review with your advisor. That would be the best way to do it, okay? If you can sell it, I don't see any problem with that, right? What can you recommend if house already paid off? That's a very good question. You know what? If your kids are already in college and you have a paid off house, I guess the best way to do it is just to restructure other assets, and that's probably not going to save you much, right? Truth be told, it's not going to, if your kids are already in college. But if you have smaller kids, let's say if my son and daughter are 8 or 10 or something like that, still have many, many years to go. Oh yeah, of course. Of course you can sell it. You're not going to stay in that house forever. Nobody gets a 30-year mortgage and stay there for 30 years until they pay it off. Nobody does that. On average, about 5 to 7 years each house. That's U.S. average, right? So you can totally do that. And remember, next house, don't pay it off that soon. If you have $1 in mortgage, you can still refinance, right? How old to prepare for a college fund? Are you asking how old, the age of parents or the age of children? I would say as soon as possible. Really, the best answer is as early as possible. The best time is definitely 10 years ago. The second best is now, right? So you have more time. You're not going to be caught in a place where you don't have much choices if you procrastinate. You know what I mean? Okay. Oh, Leo, you're gonna come to Houston? Awesome. I'll see you here. How about if a child co-signed buying a car, will that affect financial aid? Yes. The value of the car will be counted towards the asset, but they will have some allowance. Look into FAFSA instructions. It'll tell you each and every single category of assets, how much allowance is given. And yes, if it's a secondhand car, it's like $10,000 and the child owns 50% of it, it's not going to be much, right? That's okay. But if you have a Ferrari or a Bentley, that's a different story. Okay. How many of percentage of Ivy and private university count resident house into included? In my impression, I haven't seen a private university that doesn't count private house into it. Most of them would. Most of private university would count your primary residence, the house you live in. Yeah. Is there a look back period of assets sold, or is it all about the base year? Good question. So majority of it, they actually look at the base year, but they might ask for your tax return for the previous 2 years. They might. Most of the schools will only ask you to fill out the base year situation, but some schools, you can look into specific situations, okay? All right, I got all the answers, all the questions answered. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And if there's anything that I said are incorrect or incomplete, please do let me know. Let's help each other get better, okay? See you next week.